There I go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is FMA Discussion episode 280, and I lost track. 287, something like that. But at any rate, tonight it's me and Martin, and this is going to be part 2 with Tiga Tactics, Conrad and Patrick. And you guys saw the first episode. I thought went really well. These guys had a bunch of great stuff to talk about. And without further ado, we're going to be bringing them up. And I got my man Martin here, the man with the questions. So we're in good shape. And here we go, folks. Without further ado. Where's... All right, we're just going to wait for your comment. There we go. All right. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for coming on. And appreciate it. And... I'm excited tonight to hear about your tactics. I'm just going to jet out, take care of those dogs, but I'll be back soon. But we got Martin, who's going to be handling everything. Martin, whenever you take it away, brother.
All right. Well, guys, good to see you again. Welcome back. It's always an honor to have you on this show. A great honor. I've been following you for some time, like I said in the first episode. And sadly, the last episode, we had some technical issues from different ends, and we couldn't. I think I asked you guys like 4 questions, so that's why there's a part 2.
Well, thank you for bringing us back. We really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin and Dean. When he comes back, it's you're on your 280 something episode. You know what a legacy. You're putting together here. It's amazing. So we're truly honored. I've seen some of the guests that you've had on your podcast, and just legends. So we're just a part of this.
Well, yeah, Dean was discerned the certificate of being the CEO of FMA, and I think he is.
Absolutely.
All right. So for the people who are watching, I strongly encourage everyone to go see the first episode, because we went a bit through your journey, how you started martial arts, why martial arts, how do you practice so many styles of martial arts, how are you able to do it, and all this. And it was really interesting. I already took some giveaway from that, like practicing my whole system in each month and everything. I like that philosophy. I'm trying to implement it. It opened some doors in my mind. So already great first episode. But then this episode, we're going to get into the meat. We're going to get into Tiga Tactics, exactly what it is, and your views on self-defense in general, because this is what you're specialized on with Tiga Tactics. So
that's right. Patrick and I, we love martial art. And Patrick and I, we love martial arts, and it was. I think we discussed this last time. Some of our frustration and my own frustration with training so many different arts and trying to figure out, what can I use in a self-defense situation.
Yeah, because there's many techniques in many different arts, even in modern arts, that are not necessarily exactly applicable in real life, right, or in a real situation. So that's why you guys, from what I understood, try to piece together.
Yeah, and sometimes we talk about what's applicable and what is not applicable in martial arts. I don't think, definitely we are not the authority on what is the applicable and what is not applicable. I do think though, there are techniques and approaches that are higher percentage for people to use, and everything people practice out there, whether you practice Tai Chi or Taekwondo or Filipino martial arts, you're going to encounter plenty of techniques that are very applicable, and also you may encounter techniques that may not. Well, I don't want to say applicable, but higher percentage. And then there may be some techniques that are maybe more cultural and possibly lower percentage, or just academic techniques as well too.
Yeah. Oh, I like that term, academic techniques. So, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Nothing wrong with those, because I train academic techniques all the time. For example, today I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, and there's plenty of stuff I did in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class that's more sport-oriented, more for fun. You know, I mean, if all we did is train combatives, the combative element of each art, it'd be very boring. And you know, and combatives should be boring. That's the kind of a double-edged sword with combative. On one side, you have something that's very effective, but on the other side, because it's effective and it's easy and it's simple and it should be simple, it can be boring. You know, I mean, you practice palm strikes and elbow strikes and kneeing people in the groin. You can only do so much of that before you start getting academic about it. You know, and it's fine to be academic. You know, it keeps it exciting.
I completely relate to what you're saying. I was doing a system before that was purely before Filipino martial arts that was purely self-defense, and I enjoyed it at the beginning. But at some point, because a long time ago I was doing kung fu, and I missed this art and self-expression part of the art that wasn't present in that self-defense system. That's one of the reasons I love Filipino martial arts, is that you have the sport aspect, you have the combative aspect, but you have the art aspect also. You can express yourself through it, and I really like it. You know, I think it's important.
You know, and there's also the cultural aspect as well too. You can learn about the Filipino culture. You can experience their food. You can travel through the country as well too. So that's just all an amazing part of the Filipino martial arts.
Agreed. So let's dive in. All right, I'm just gonna read the first questions, guys. Okay, Tiga Tactics, like we said, clearly focuses on self-defense / combatives. But like you just said, you also practice combat sports and traditional martial arts. I invite the viewers to go see the first episode to know which ones. How do you make relevant the traditional arts in the self-defense context? What do you use from the traditional arts, or how do you use it?
I think it's really important to always, it depends, right? Like you just can't assume like one technique will apply in every situation or every context. So I think it's really important, and this is a great lead, tie-in with FMA discussion, is that with something like Kali, Arnis, Eskrima, they're concepts based. So if you study the art long enough, you'll see how the concepts can be applied to self-defense. But again, you have to understand that there are certain situations that differ, and then you have to determine, does this concept apply in this specific situation? I think one of the big problems with not just FMA, but any traditional or even modern martial art is that people start to create solutions for problems that don't exist. You know, and that's a big problem with self-defense. Again, like what Conrad said before, what's high percentage? What's more likely to happen on the street? You should actually look at that first, which is what we did. We studied literally hundreds of videos of people getting attacked. And then you can work your way backward, as opposed to a lot of martial artists. They want to add up as many techniques as possible and then say, okay, we're going to take this technique and that'll be the solution for this problem. It's like, it should actually be the other way around. You know, it should be more science-based. And that's, where Conrad definitely takes the lead with this, because he's got a lot of martial arts in his arsenal, right, Conrad?
So back to your question, what do you use from traditional martial arts? There's there are so many things that we can use from traditional martial arts. I think a situation or a problem we can run into is having too many things that we can possibly use. And so, like what Patrick said, it's important to figure out how street attacks happen, and then reverse engineer that and figure out, based on traditional martial arts and just martial arts and common sense in general, what's a logical solution to these problems? I spent a lot of time in traditional martial arts, and that was a blast because I had just literally a mountain of information to pull from, and so and every art had something very positive to contribute, and so when we teach Tiga Tactics, there are bits and pieces from many different arts. We often start our seminars with almost like Tai Chi like warm up. So we'll start with like some very simple combative strikes like the palm strike, and we'll start that out really slow and just ask people to be very mindful of their body. How is your hips moving? Where is your foot placed? What about your shoulders? How are you using your core? Let's start out slow. Let's warm up with this. That comes from traditional martial arts. Also, training the technical portion of an attack. That's from traditional martial arts. A lot of traditional martial arts, we'll throw out a punch, and then we kind of hold it out there, and then our partner does whatever they need to do against that punch, and we allow that as an attacker, just so that our partner can get the coordination, the timing, the distancing, the muscle memory from all that. So that comes from the traditional martial arts as well too. We also branch into combat sports, which is we'll use like, for example, we'll go by round. So we'll do one round of this, or we'll do one round of that. Instead of generally traditional martial arts is like, okay, you throw a punch, then I throw a punch, then you throw a punch, I throw a punch. It's just more efficient for a person to lap out a certain technique for a certain amount of round. That way, if you're proficient, you can wrap out many techniques. If you're not that proficient and you're still trying to figure it out, you don't have to be pushed so fast, so hard. You go at your own pace during that round that you have. Pulling in the combat sports, we add in the pad work from Muay Thai, from boxing, the focus mitts, the Thai pads. From Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we add in the live element in a context, as well as the live element in situational training. So we break down a little situation, and then we start slow, soft. We start technical, and then we start putting in some liveness in the attacker, step by step, though. Not. I see a lot of arts, and I've been involved in these arts. And I've been guilty of doing this too when I train my students. Is I would start like very slow, very technical, and then I would say, okay, let's just go for it. And then we go from technical to crazy, and it's just too chaotic for the student to pick up a proper technique, as well as the proper distance from their partner as well too. So we've incorporated that type of training into Tiga Tactics as well too.
Cool. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it comes back a lot also from what you were saying, Patrick. One of my Krav Maga instructor used to say, don't be a collector of techniques. Understand concepts, and you're going to know many techniques, ultimately. So it
exactly.
comes back. Cool. All right. You guys gave seminars on empty hand defense versus knife, right?
Yes.
I almost participated to one. I will in the future, I promise. What are your biggest takeaways on the subject, and what are the most common fallacies in empty hand versus knives in self-defense context?
Ooh, my favorite subject.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say that we do have a knife seminar, not just unarmed defense against knives, but we also have how to use knives defensively, and that's coming up May 14th. But and to answer your question, there are many fallacies. One of the big ones that's not just prevalent in FMA, but in martial arts in general is, I'm going to disarm him. He comes at me with a knife. I'm going to grab his arm, grab his hand, grab his wrist, put him in a lock, get the knife out of his hand right away. That's gonna happen at a very low percentage, if at all. I think the whole concept of disarming right away as your first move is gonna be fatal. You're gonna die basically, or get seriously injured. To make a disarm work, you have to first protect yourself, not get stabbed, not get slashed, then control the person, and then distract them enough to the point where they're not going to resist you, not going to try to take the knife back. You know, because we train and we're like, stab him, and he just stays there. And then, of course, you do the disarm, and it's super easy. But in real life, if you watch real videos, when people attack with a knife, it's a jackhammer. And so at what point of that jackhammering are you going to be like, oh, wait, stop. I need to bend your wrist like this, and then I need to come through with the other hand? It's not going to happen. So that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves when people teach disarms and against unarmed defense against knives.
Interesting.
It's
Go ahead.
incredibly difficult subject, incredibly difficult to do, real time, real speed, assuming, and like you said, what I see mostly, A, they leave it out there, or B, it's not with full intention, and there's a missing dynamic there of that, where anybody who's done this with integrity has embraced failures, has failed. It's just, it's really difficult.
My coach, FMA coach Sebastien, says he teaches disarms, but he teaches disarms because when you know disarms, you know where to place your hands. So for him, training in disarms is training where to better place your hands for disarms or for something else, you know. And him, a dog brother, he knows that you cannot always disarm someone, you know, but at least your hands are mostly at the right place when you train disarm. So that's the option when he trains it. Conrad, what's your take on the subject, fallacies and empty hand versus knife?
This was one of my frustrations training in bladed arts like Kali and Silat. And, you know, Bruce Lee said to be honest, brutally honest with yourself, that's a really tough thing to do. And I remember, you know, I was a guru in Kali and a guru in Silat already. And, you know, I had a niece, and she was probably about 8 years old. And so she had this little kitchen play set, and she had these kitchen knives in her little kitchen play set. And so I said, okay, here, grab this knife and stab Uncle Conrad with it as crazy as you can. And yeah, you know, she's a little tomboy, and she's like, okay. And, you know, I had to really muscle her to get that knife away from her. And I thought, wow, okay, here I am, a grown man, supposedly with skill, and this little 8-year-old is cutting me up.
Oh no!
And I'm must.
Oh, connection again, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely, he's got a connection issue.
Yeah, unfortunately, he dropped out. But I do know what he's talking about, that story, because, you know, we were all relatives. And the little niece, she's just vicious. And that's play to her. You know, they're just messing around, fooling around. So.
My train.
Oh, did he, Conrad?
He's in and out. It's definitely the blue screen. Definitely internet. Yeah, definitely internet connection.
Yeah.
But much to your point, Patrick, it's like give a little kid a crayon and try if you can see them stop where they can't touch you with a marker as a crayon. You know?
Right.
It's hard. It's a lifelong ambition. You know what I mean? You know, and what I think if you start with the bigger attacks first, your sewing machine, your reverse, your wide slasher, before you start getting into within the shoulders. But it's a lifelong endeavor, and failures, you better embrace them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let's not forget, in self-defense, the goal is to give you more chances of coming out alive. There's no absolute technique, like you were saying, Patrick, right? So
Right.
it's like it just gives you more chances of getting out alive, but you will. It's just you have more chances than someone who's not trained or not trained well with fantasies, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's back. Hopefully, internet. His internet is better. Let's find out. Okay. All right, that's better. Okay.
All right. Let's take the chance to say hi to Alvin Albano and Alex Ursia, who are commented for now.
Hello, hey group.
Terry Joven is
So
here.
we got Guru Terry just jumping in. Yeah, folks, if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. So, all right, Conrad, you're back. So, you know what? We kind of missed a good chunk of what you were saying. So, if you don't mind starting again.
We were talking about how teaching knife, empty hand versus knife, in our seminars. That's a very touchy subject because there's just so many variables to it, and there's been a lot of different ideas of how to defend yourself against a bladed attack. And so I think I was talking about my niece who
You were, yeah.
he had a play knife, and I said, go ahead and attack me, and it took a lot of wrestling, and I was cut up and everything with her little play knife, not literally cut up, but yeah, she was tagging me and stuff like that, and so that got me on the journey to try to figure out what I could do better. As far as knife defense goes. And I think we talked about this last time. Patrick and we studied a lot of footage, and it took me a while to take a step back away from the martial arts knowledge and look at it more as a reality, like what really happened out there. And so we studied a lot of footage, figured out how knife attacks go down, and you know, we talked about like the sewing machine and the stab. And so I had to kind of try to figure out how a knife attack actually happened, because in Kali and Silat, you know, we have all these angles and we're using the knife in very specific ways, and definitely deadly. There's no doubt it's deadly. And the thing is, based on our research, people didn't really attack like that on the street. And we found that the way people attack you is basically like a kid in middle school. And the majority of the time, the footage that we saw, this is like the first time a person picked up that weapon to use it to kill somebody with. You know, it's not like people think about it. It's like us, like, oh, here's a knife. I've got like so many slashes and stabs that I can use. But most of the footage we saw, it was like this is a weapon of opportunity and very little, if any, training. And so it was a big piece of the puzzle to figure out how people actually attack. And we all know how now. And then you know, take a step back and try to create a logical solution to these problems that would improve somebody's odds of coming out with less injury. I say less injuries because I just trained our Tiga Tactics combatives against a knife against my student, and we were maybe going like 60-70%, and I still got cut up. And you know, it's just like that's just the way it is, and it's sometimes a little bit of fantasy to think, oh, well, you know, someone at me with a knife, like what Patrick said, I'll just carry check it, turn their wrist, disarm them, or something like that. It might not go. And so it's good to understand how the attacks happen. Then I figure out a logical solution, and then have a type of progressive training where we could take somebody and start slow, like Tai Chi way, and then slowly build it up to a technical way, like most martial arts, you know, stab and slow, and maybe hold it out there sometimes the person can slowly work the muscle memory, they work the distancing, the timing, and then slowly add resistance, proper resistance well too, and then allow that person to defend themselves at 100% by using pad work as well too. So Patrick and I, we sifted through our systems, whether that was traditional martial arts or combat sports, and we found a logical progression for the training to these types of attacks. And Patrick talked about this, but I want to talk about it a little more. We call our system of protection a PRO, pro. So the P stands for protect yourself, like what Patrick said. Try not to get stabbed. Try to keep your distance. Try to defend against that. The R stands for reposition or restrain. Okay, so we want to reposition to a safer place before we go to the O, which is the offense. And so the offense can be strikes, or it could be a disarmament maybe. But we don't generally get to the offense until we've protected ourselves. And this formula goes not only against knife attack, but punches too. So if somebody's going to punch you in the head, you want to make sure you're not knocked out before you go and do your thing. Okay? And so the PRO, protection, reposition, offense, that came a lot from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When we saw Royce Gracie take people down, he was on them or in a position where he was pretty safe before he went on to his offense. And so that's where our PRO formula comes from. But all that being said, that's a lot of technical portion. In our seminars, maybe some people don't like this, but we spend half a day on the mindset. We'll have people like in a classroom with PowerPoint, and we talk about mindset. And I think mindset trumps skill set and tool set. And so that's why we spend so much time on it. And I don't know, I don't care if you're bored, because we got to talk about the mindset. And the mindset, in a nutshell, is stay alert, stay humble, stay kind. That's our Tiga Tactics 3-stage mindset, is stay alert. When I've taken a lot of seminars in the past, and from masters about a knife and knife defense and things like that, and we just get right into it. It's like just stab him. I think a responsible combatives instructor, mindset is key. Mindset before skill set, before tool set. And so we'll spend half a day talking about staying alert. Military law enforcement might call that situational awareness, but as a Buddhist, we've been calling that mindfulness for thousands of years. And I'm not law enforcement. I'm not former military or active military. I'm your average citizen. And I like the word alert. Mindfulness. Just so that we can practice that as self-defense and as a way of life. I don't have to look around on rooftops for snipers or something like that. I'm your average citizen. And so for me, that mindfulness is just being aware, taking deep breaths, being present with my environment. I've read research studies that show that we're mindful only about 20% of our day, the average person, which means that we're on autopilot 80% of the day. That's crazy. And so, we talk about the mindfulness, and in our class, we practice deep breathing. We talk about that, and of course that goes to situational awareness. If you're mindful of your environment, you can be mindful that I could be in danger here. This is midnight at a gas station. What am I doing out here? I better get in my car and head home or something. So we're mindful of that. But not only that, as a civilian, I believe, it's good to be mindful of what's beautiful out there too. What's going great in our day. Wow, the flower's beautiful. This is a lovely day. The days are getting longer. I'm taking deep breaths. The air is fresh and clear. Not just situational awareness, looking around for the bad guy all the time. Although, yes, being mindful you need a balance. I believe the right way is the middle way. Having a good balance in life, understanding that yes, there is potential danger out here. Safety is an illusion. That's something we always say. Safety is an illusion. When you watch these the footage of violent encounters, sometimes it's just crazy stuff. It happens whenever, to whoever, at whatever time. When, safety is really an illusion. Sometimes it's just bad luck. Even though we're super mindful, we're super situationally aware, things do happen. And so safety is an illusion. That's why, you want to have the right mindset. You want to train. So it would stay alert. And then stay humble. What the hell's that about? What are these combative guys talking about staying humble? You want to expand on that, Patrick?
Yeah, that's a huge part of our mindset. That is, I wish more martial artists would think this way too. Any man who lived through his teens and 20s knows that sometimes humility is not very prevalent. So you go out to the nightclubs or you're going to play sports and ego becomes this huge thing, and some guy bumps into you, or he's looking at your woman, or you're against our team and you suck. There's too much ego, and that often creates a lot of conflict, and conflict almost always results in fisticuffs, right? But if you change your mindset and you stay humble and you say, hey, I'm going to keep my ego at home, even though I'm a lethal weapon, you're going to avoid a lot more fights than a lot of other people who are a little too red-blooded, I guess, too much testosterone, or they got a chip on their shoulder, or they're too insecure, they have something to prove. I think with more humility, if you come across someone who's acting like a jerk, you're like, hey, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry. Let me buy you another drink, or hey, I apologize for bumping into you. That could avoid a lot of physical conflicts more than that's more important than how do I do this vlog? How do I punch him really fast? How do I knock him out? I think humility is just key in life in general.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just about to say, I couldn't agree more, guys. So many self-defense seminars, some that I went to, they focus only on techniques. For me, in self-defense, when you take up only about self-defense, techniques is 20% of self-defense. The mindset, the tactics, it's for me, it's 80%. And I was having this discussion with a friend who's doing some boxing, great boxer. But we were in the subway station, and I was talking because back then I was researching a lot on the mindset and awareness. I was reading the book Left of Bang, great book, by the way. And I was like, you see, mindset and the awareness, it's so important, because if I walk like this in the street, no matter I'm a Krav Maga instructor or black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's done, right? And I was talking about him about this, and you can even, like you said, just more enjoy life and see the opportunities in life if you're aware of your environment. And as I was talking to him, I saw a mom with a stroller, and there was stairs, so I went to help her. And up the stairs, my friend who I was having the discussion with, he told me, I never saw her. I just never saw her. And I'm like, you see, proves my point.
Good stuff.
Back to the being humble as well too. I have a few things to add to that. Sometimes I meet martial artists or even people in the gun world. They're very accomplished. They start to have this chip on their shoulder, and yeah, sure, they're badasses. They're definitely badasses. But I'll tell you what, you never know the kind of person that you might run into in an encounter. It's just good to be humble and not start trouble.
100%.
Yeah, you can never tell who has skills, and you can never tell what kind of weapons they might be carrying as well.
And that's the big thing right there. Like you start something over something stupid, and that guy's carrying, and you want to escalate it over something dumb.
Yes.
I mean, that's
definitely.
Yeah, so you never know what kind of weapon they might have, whether that's a knife or a firearm. You don't know what kind of friend they have. I mean, they might be a pushover, but their friend who's hiding bushes there It could be a stone cold killer as well too, or there might be 20 of them. You know, so and the other thing is you don't know what kind of day you might be having. That's like if you watch MMA, sometimes you know there's a champion looks untouchable. He's just having his crappiest performance while his opponent's having his best performance. Normally, the champion is up here and the other guy's down here, but because the champion had a bad day and the other guy had a great day, you know, you just don't know what kind of day you have. So it just pays to be humble.
Definitely.
Let me also add one more thing to this. One of my students just yesterday too, he was like, "Hey, you know, I saw this footage of this one guy at this baseball stadium, and he's like throwing some boxing punches, and you know, our competitors were training against a lot of this, and I said, well, you know, and so he was asking, how do you defend against like this boxing platform, and I said, well, you know, if somebody's dancing around you, what's happening there? They're not really trying to destroy you. They're dancing around you, and it's usually an ego thing. You know, if somebody's dancing around me, I'll just raise my hand and say, "Hey, I don't want none of this. You win. You're tougher. I'm out of here." You know, if somebody's dancing around, and I said, if you want to fight that boxer, well then, and you want to fight a boxer, you better spend your time in the boxing ring. That's all there is. You know, I'm not going to give you an advantage kill or something. You just go in a boxing ring. But if I was fighting a boxer and I saw him moving around doing the Muhammad Ali and stabbing at my face, I would just put my hand up and go, dude, I don't want none of this, all right? Whatever, man, you're the man. You're the man. Your girl looks better than the girl I'm with. That's all cool. I'm out here. You know, so I told him, you know, usually when someone's got format happening, there's something about ego involved, because the footage I've seen, when somebody uses their fists, they're using it to assault you so that they can damage you and steal something. I mean, they're just punching you. They're just punching you, and they're not going to be punching you, you know, perfect jab, hook, jab, or straight, hook, straight kind of thing. They're going to be like just kind of really pound your head in. And so that's the kind of assault you want to practice against. But again, if you're humble, and you're alert, that kind of boxing counter that you're looking for, that's it right there. That's it right there. Avoid trouble. I told my student, you know, when I see people fight like that, I walk the other way. You know, it's like there's a big fight happening. I disappear. You know, I don't need to sit around and watch those things. Staying humble is a part. So let's move on to staying kind, though. What the hell's about that? About stay alert, stay humble, stay kind. So where does that fit in? Pat, you want to start that?
Yeah, I've definitely not heard any self-defense instructor or martial artist say that you should stay kind as part of their curriculum. And I think that's where we're really different, is because we do self-defense and martial arts to become better people and to help other people become better. It's not about suppressing another person, showing how much better we are than them. And that really starts with this 3-stage mindset, you know, and the stay kind part is really, really important. Conrad kind of mentioned it before. Let's say you bump into somebody and they're having the worst day of their life. Maybe their relative is in the hospital, their dog died. Maybe they're just in a car crash, so they don't know, they're in shock. You bump into them and you start something with them, they could snap, right? And they're not evil. They're not trying to rob you or kill you. And all of a sudden you're in this road rage incident because you weren't sharing that kindness, right? I think if you go in, and this tied in a little bit with humility and staying humble, but it's really, for us, really important to stay kind. And it's a two-part scenario, because it's not just I want to be kind to them. It could also be that if we get into a fight and I kill him or I wound him, I put him in the hospital, that's the exact opposite of what I want to do. I'm not being kind anymore. I'm actually doing malice to him, right? And so if I stay kind, I'm actually helping him stay safe and healthy, because we're not going to clash. And so to me, that the stay kind part is always a two-parter, right? Be kind, just be a good person in general, and also you're being kind by not hurting them. because maybe they're not a robber or a rapist. Maybe they're just having a really bad day.
Interesting.
Heading back to what Patrick's again, we're not law enforcement, we're not military. You know, it's okay as a civilian to be kind. There was there was an instructor in one of our classes. I think he trained federal agents defend themselves when they go overseas, like that. And he was asking, we were talking about stay alert, stay humble, stay kind. And he's like, kind? How kind should you be? And you know, he's coming from a different context. You know, don't be a dick. You know, that's it. If you've got a job to do your job, you know, and be a dick about it. Sometimes you have to be a dick about it, you know, to do a certain job. But as a civilian, you know, that's where I'm coming from, is staying kind. And being kind doesn't mean you're weak. Being kind shows your character. When there's pressure upon you, and you're able to show that you're kind, and you can resolve a situation with grace, that shows strength in my book. And again, that's combatives. That mindset is more important than anything I can teach you about this technique or training. That's the mindset. And you know, being kind isn't for the other person. In fact, research shows being kind is for us. Being kind improves our day. Research has shown people who generally are considered kind have less depression, they have less stress, and they have a better outlook on life. And so when I'm kind, I'm not doing it for you. I'm actually doing it for me. You know? And so that's just a way to live our life. And that's the mindset of teaching. You know, we hear the words combatives, and we instinctively think, oh, kick ass, beat them up. You might think of a drill sergeant with tattoos yelling at you or something like that. We're civilian combatives instructors, and we're proud of it. You know, we're not here to tell people to destroy things. You know, destruction is easy. Creation is difficult, and so that is through our kind of mindset as well too.
Wow, well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I guess it's pretty much in the same seminars, but you also give parts of the seminars on how to use the knife as a self-defense tool. Taking into account, as you know, that many instructors are against the use of a knife in a self-defense situation, why, in your opinion, a knife could be a good self-defense tool?
Patrick? I think the big reason is that it's generally legal in most areas of the world, and so it's a good alternative to a firearm. I know there's a political element to firearms these days, but the firearm is the great equalizer. You know, it doesn't matter if you train 30 years in Filipino martial arts. If someone shoots you, you're probably going to get seriously harmed or die, right? So a lot of people can't either afford a firearm or it's not legal in the area, and so the knife is the next option for them that's available. And so it's legal. It's more readily available. I mean, you can't go anywhere in the world and not find a knife, right? You can go in any country and buy a knife, basically, usually. And so that's why we train it, and that's why we want to give people these options. And that's one of the big things with us, and the way that we approach the topic of knives is it's an ethical approach. We're very practical. It's very effective. You know, we'll show you all the cool techniques, but I think the big emphasis is how do you responsibly carry this knife and use it, right? You know, Conrad's been to tons and tons of seminars. I've been to seminars, and you know, the seminar always starts with the knife in your hand. This is how you kill people, right? And for me, the knife should be a tool, but you are the weapon. So when if you are pushed against the wall and you have to take out that tool, then you're ready to go. But for me, when I carry a knife, I'm actually far less likely to use it because I know it's a deadly weapon. And so it actually changes the way I behave. I'm actually much more humble and much more kind because I know if I have to pull this knife out, I could theoretically kill somebody, and then that opens up a whole nother world, right? And I think Conrad will probably talk a little bit more about that, but it's that different mindset of carrying a knife that's really important. And the other obvious one is that it's a tool, right? It's you use it to cut boxes and do gardening and all kinds of stuff. It's a utility tool, so that's the big reason why I carry a knife. But in terms of the self-defense aspects, it's just a good alternative to ultimately what is the I don't want to say best self-defense weapon, but it's a good alternative to a firearm.
What do you say to instructors that say that you will never be able to, let's say someone attacks you with a knife, you will never be able to take out your knife in time or during a technique and use it? You have to focus empty-hand against knife.
That's an excellent question, and that's one of the big things that we cover in our EDC Edge Weapon seminar. Way too many people teach, whether it's FMA or some other martial art, it's too much dueling. There's too much knife on knife, and that's very rare in real life. You know, we study hundreds and hundreds of videos, and let's just say I've watched 500 videos. I might see 10 or 12 people with a knife in each hand, right? Or one person has a knife, the other person has a knife. That's really low percentage, right? So for you to train for a low percentage situation is not as efficient in terms of your training protocols. It's much better to train for something that's higher percentage, which is you're going to be unarmed when someone attacks you with a knife, because who walks around with a knife all day, right? Yeah. Even if you worked at, say, a grocery store where you had to cut fruit and things like that, you're not walking around with a knife. You know, you're always going to have it in your pocket or a sheath. And so to go for the knife right away against someone who's stabbing you already, that's very dangerous. You're probably going to get cut or stabbed along the way. So it's much better to deal with the threat. Again, going back to the PRO formula, the PRO formula, you protect yourself first, you reposition yourself, and then when it's time, you have the option to go for your offense, which is the knife. So, Conrad, did you want to jump in on that?
Oh, there's a lot. You know, Patrick and I didn't just throw this seminar together and say, I'll throw in a little collie here, a lot there, and a little Brazilian jiu-jitsu here or there. We thought about this and for a long time. I mean, this is a seminar literally like 40 years in the making. When I first started CLOT, it was part of the CLOT culture to have a bunch of blades all over you. And so I joined along with all my brothers, and I had several blades, you know, one pocket carry, one hip carry, one back hip carry. You know, looking back at it, it was kind of almost silly, but that was just part of the culture. And then I gave a thought. I was like, okay, I'm carrying this deadly weapon. What if somebody cut me off and they got out, they're yelling at me and yelling back at them. We exchanged words. We got in a scuffle. I pull out my guy, and maybe he was just having a bad day. And I thought I can live with myself with that. So I stopped carrying for a while. I completely cut cold turkey. I thought, you know, that's just not worth it. And so I stopped carrying a blade for the longest time.
Yeah, I don't carry one either. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it took me a while to carry it again after I sorted things out in my mind. And again, back to the mindset, before skill set, before tool set. And so what was my mindset? You know, a big portion of our seminar is devoted to that mindset. We talk about the legalities. We're not attorneys. We talk about general legalities and the ethics of using a deadly weapon to defend yourself. You know, we do ask our audience, are you willing to take a life to defend yourself and your loved ones? You need to make that decision right here and now. Are you willing to take a life in defense of yourself, your own life, or those you love? And there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone, you know, has their own. And there's no right or wrong, but that decision needs to be made if you're thinking of carrying a deadly weapon. And so that's the first decision. You know, is that something you're willing to do? Also, where is that line drawn? You need to make it clear where that line is, so there's no hesitation in your mind when you're going to use your weapon. Again, if you're just carrying a blade because it's part of the culture of your art, and you haven't decided yet decided where you drew that line, you might draw it at inappropriate time, or you might never draw it.
Or you might
Right?
freeze
So,
when the moment comes, right? Because you didn't make
yes,
the decision.
exactly. So it's important, to consider. My life is in danger. Yeah, I'll do this. My family's life is in danger. Yes, I'll do this. A kid's life is in danger. That's all things that you need to consider. If you see a kid being pounded on the pavement or something, are you going to take action? If you see an elderly person being assaulted, will you take action? Those are the kind of things that we really need to consider before the incident happens. And again, this is very. I've never been to seminars that really discuss this. We also talk about, whenever you're in a fight, especially with a deadly weapon that you're carrying, there's going to be 3 fights that you have to survive. The first fight is the actual physical confrontation. The second is the financial confrontation, which includes law, attorneys, a lot of sleepless nights. If you have finances, no big deal. You take care of that with your finances. But if you don't, that's going to be another fight you have to put up with. And the third fight is the mental fight. PTSD is a real, you get involved in a fight and you take someone's life, that can change you, and change the course of your life completely. So those are 3 things that are important to consider as well too. Talking about like why some teachers are like, well, maybe you can teach knife. It's true. It's a deadly weapon, and if you're going to use it, it needs to be taught in an ethical and responsible and mature way, not just, oh, here's a knife. Here, I'm going to cut this person across the neck and across the stomach, and there we go. He just died. Ha, ha. For me personally, I don't think that's a mature and responsible way to teach a knife class. So these are just things that have frustrated myself and Patrick through the years of training.
Good, great. Yeah, mental triggers, right? Define your mental triggers before a fight happens. Whether it's not react, when do you not react? You didn't define your mental triggers, you're gonna freeze or take a wrong decision, like you said, right?
And also, I'd probably say when we get to the technique section, 80% of the time training that we spend training is in deploying the knife, is in deploying the blade. Because once the blade is out, again, my 7-year-old niece is a deadly weapon, right? And so for us to focus so much on the blade being out, what's the point? I mean, to kill somebody with a knife, it's not rocket science, right? Cut them along the throat, cut them inside the wrist. That's not rocket science. You don't have to be an anatomy to know that. But in a deadly situation, when there's pressure, you might be pushed, you might be grabbed, you might have to employ your empty hand before you deploy your knife. That's going to be much more common than my knife already out and I'm doing all these beautiful stabs and slashes. Knowing to deploy the weapon, again, like what you said, Mark, the mental triggers, the whole mindset, and then being able to deploy that weapon properly, and at the same time being able to have situations where you may not have deployed it properly. For example, if you're using a folding knife, there's actually 4 grips that you transition through before you get to your what I call a battle grip, your life and death. All right. So if you're using a folding knife, there's going to be 4 types of switches that you have to get through before you get to your battle grip. And a lot of things can happen at that time because, again, we need to remember these are defensive tools. I'm not walking around with my knife in my hand looking at people. Oh, you want to start something? You want to start something? No, it's in here. I only pull it out again when that line has been crossed. And but again, by getting to that battle grip, there's a lot of things that can happen. I could drop my knife. And so we go through those trainings. What do you do when your knife drops? Well, we have this technique that you can use, and then we drill that. What if you fall? What if you fall to the ground? How do you pull your knife? If you're laying on your knife, you can't pull your knife out. How do you off the ground. Somebody's on top of you. How do you do that? And so we have ways of looking at these failure drills. And I know these things happen because they happen to me when I practice my knife art. And to deploy my weapon, I've dropped my knife before when I deploy quickly and somebody's punching me and I'm trying to defend myself and I get to a safe position to deploy my weapon. It's fallen on the ground before. I've been tripped to the mat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't get my knife out. And so these are all things that have happened to us and very common occurrences that I just don't see people training. You know, again, back to the traditional arts, they're wonderful art, and all arts, no matter how good they are, can be a little bit better, a little bit up. And it takes, like Bruce Lee said, brutal honesty to look at that and go, you know, maybe we can improve something here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, talking about knife training, we had a question from what's his name? Dragon, I think.
Dragon, yeah.
Here's his question, word by word. In terms of knife defense, is there some kind of hierarchy of skills a person needs to develop in order to acquire functional defense ability? If there is, does it also entail some particular order of developing them?
Patrick?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a very precise and technical question. The skills needed to draw a knife safely is going to obviously be developed through a lot of practice. I think the hierarchy is kind of what we established with our PRO system, right? PRO, protection, reposition, offense. You could be lightning fast. You could basically be a gunslinger with your knife and pull it out in a quarter of a second. But if someone's already stabbed you, shot you, punched you, does it really matter? Because you may already be dead, you know, or you're going to die later, right? Like, this is one of the big things that I always say in class, in our seminars, is that I don't want to trade, right? If someone's coming at me with a knife, I don't want to try to draw my knife as he's stabbing me, because let's say he stabs me, but I'm able to get my knife out and then I stab him. Well, guess what? We both die later at the hospital, right? Yeah. Or if he's going to shoot me, I pull out my knife, I stab him, he shoots me, I die right away. He might die later in the hospital. I don't know. Maybe not. It's a bad trade to do, right? So yes, as Paulo says, people want to buy outcomes and not go through the process. I agree, 100%. You know, you just have to go through that and develop the skills necessary to adapt to the context. So the hierarchy is always the same. It's always you protect yourself first, then you're positioned to a safer place, and then you go for your knife draw. Sometimes you may go through that process and you realize, I don't need to draw my knife anymore because my empty hand combatives knocked him out, right? And so he's fallen on the ground, his knife's out of his hand. You know, I don't need to draw my knife anymore and stab him while he's unconscious, right? So through our training, you get that holistic approach, as opposed to, oh, I'm gonna just practice knife draw. Well, you eliminated 80 to 90% of the other important stuff, which, as Conrad mentioned before, is staying alert, staying mindful, negotiating, evading, running away. You know, that's a huge option that a lot of people don't teach, because it's cowardly. It's, you know, cowardly. You're not a man if you run away from a fight. If I'm alone, my first option is always to run away. I can, in about 30 meters, 50 meters, I can outrun almost anybody because fear is a big driver, and I don't want to fight if I can, right? And so it's really a whole holistic approach of how you train and developing a evolution of your skills. But again, if there's a hierarchy, it's protect yourself first, reposition, and then you can decide about what kind of offense you want to execute.
Perfectly said, Patrick. You know, I think there's that is our formula. You know, and sometimes, you know, formulas can be broken. It's a very fluid formula. It's very flexible as well too. But if at a loss for anything, protect yourself first. So again, talked about getting punched. So you want to protect yourself against punch first. Stab, you want to protect yourself from getting stabbed multiple times. You might get once. Let's let's try to just keep it at that. Against a impact weapon, again, move in, cover up the arm, hang on to it for dear life, protect yourself from getting hit with that weapon. Try to train it and reposition yourself to a good position before you go on the offense. The training is also very important to have good progression so that we can take someone with limited no knowledge and have them give them a better percentage, better odds of surviving type of attacks. So there is a training progression that we generally do, which is we start out again. Everything we start out Tai Chi slow, and so people can understand the mechanics. They understand the timing, the distancing. Go slow, and then start speeding it up. And then once you're comfortable with the movement, you have more muscle memory for the movement. Then we can start adding in a little more resistance. Okay, so as somebody, let's say a knife attack is coming in, we're gonna come in faster. We're gonna have them attack slightly different areas. But we want to fully progress it to where the student can handle that progression. We don't just want to go, okay, here's the technique, practice it a few times. Okay, go ahead and try step real quick now. And everything falls apart. So we want to train our students so that there's that slow progression up until they can start doing it full force. And the thing about the progression is you want to make it safe for both sides. It's just important to make sure it's safe, because when you're training combatives and you're training palm strikes or elbow strikes or what we call an eye wash, attacking the eyes, injuries can happen. So we want to make sure it's safe for both sides, and then we want to make sure that it's also fun as well too, because again, I am a civilian. I am not law enforcement. I'm not military. Part of the reason I train this is for fun. Yeah, part of the reason is for personal protection, but part of the reason is for fun. I'm not going to lie. I like having fun. All right. And so the very last bit is the effectiveness. Okay. If you say my stuff is not effective, I don't care. I'm out there. I'm training. I'm having fun. I don't care. So that's just your argument. This is what I train. You might train something different, and that's okay too. If you don't consider it effective, well, that's all right. You keep training what you're training, and I'll keep training what I'm training, and I'm not. As long as I'm safe and I'm having fun, I'm getting a good workout, and again, what is effective? All I'm trying to do is improve people's odds of surviving situations. That's all you can do, is improve someone's odds. There's nothing that is effective, right? You can only improve someone's odds, and we're trying to improve it as much as we can. Obviously, getting off your couch, working out, doing some kind of martial arts already your odds. We're just trying to push that bar up just a little bit higher.
Well said. Yeah. Well, yeah. Much respect on that. Like, empty-handed against knife. If anybody's telling you, like, there's 100%, or this is, they should be telling you the verbiage that you're saying, like, hey, this is what it's come out at, the highest percentage of resistance with us. We're not guarantee you 100% success. Anybody's saying that or advocating that is they haven't been in the trenches, to be honest with you.
No, yeah, totally. I just got cut. Not cut, but I knew I was cut by my student as we were training yesterday. And, that's just, I don't care who you are or what you train. Things happen.
Yeah, right. It's failure induced. I don't care. If you're doing it with integrity, gradual incremental resistance, the feeds are with intention. If you haven't failed, then I'm going to attribute that to it's probably the intensity was at like 10% or something.
Yeah, one of the big things that we're advocates of is pressure testing. Not a lot of people do that. They teach a lot of technique, and it works 100% of the time because there's no resistance from the partner, and there's no realistic intent, as you said before, Dean, right?
And the feeding, right. Yeah. Like, in other words, like the feed right from the get-go. Throw it out the window. Like it's false right from the get-go. It's, you know what I mean? And I think you're right. There's that element of complacency where I don't, yeah, but it's an industry where I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of delusion. I'm just, you know, I mean, it's just, we have to be honest. There's just, there's an aspect of delusion in the community when it comes to empty hand against knife. It's just, you know.
Absolutely.
Paul has a question, but before that, because you kind of just touched about my next small question, Patrick. So we're going to get to your question right after, Paul, I promise.
Do you think your appearance negatively affects your marketability? Do you think your appearance?
Let's go to it.
Does he, Paul? I don't know if you mean my appearance, because I have bald, so maybe some people don't want to train with bald people. I don't know. I think appearance
common before.
Is a part of. Tough question. Yes, I think appearance can affect marketability. Absolutely. That's just human nature, right? People are attracted to attractive people, and. Oh man, in Kung Fu, because I'm one of the first martial arts I learned was Chinese martial arts, right? Is Kung Fu, and I don't want to name any names, but in my lineage, there is a grandmaster who had a massive pot belly, but he was a master, and like I always said, his belly was full of chi. That's why he's so great, you know. So yeah, it can, you know, if you say you're a master, but clearly you haven't done enough push-ups and crunches, I don't know. Like,
we're not sure that's going to be happening.
You know, so I think if you're running a business, then yes, it will definitely affect your marketability to a certain degree. Yeah, but I think ultimately, talent and skill and hopefully honesty and integrity will trump that, and good people will find you.
Yeah, appearance definitely is going to. Yeah, appearance definitely. You know, if you're tattoos all over your face and all that.
Yeah, he says fighters are seriously amazing, but you need more tattoos, you need tattoos, you need beards.
See? Yeah, you gotta go.
Oh man.
You know, a bunch of skulls on your forehead, and you're gonna be good to go with the clientele. I'm sure they're gonna be just. You know.
Coming back to what you were saying, Patrick, just before Paul's question, you were talking about pressure testing.
Right.
Do you go to the point of pressure test by sparring in your classes or in seminars, or you don't go until you go to sparring?
No, excellent question. The way I look at it is that sparring is its own thing. You know, I always tell my students, sparring is not fighting, and fighting is not sparring. I think you could be an amazing sparrer and be a championship, you know, sparrer, if that's the right term. But that doesn't necessarily make you a good street fighter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So pressure testing to basically what you know, Conrad's this is really Conrad's innovation, and so maybe he should answer this. But basically, it's putting on the gear, the proper equipment, and isolating a very real life situation. So we watch a video and we try to replicate as best as possible using proper equipment. And then, as Conrad mentioned, the evolution, we go slow, then we go a little bit faster, and then we go full contact and see if the technique still works. So Conrad, maybe you should explain it a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah. There's so many layers to the sparring question. Well, in our seminar, since it's only 2 days, you know, you can only impart so much knowledge to your students. But what Patrick said, like we want to isolate the higher percentage occurrences out there. So sometimes when you spar, you know, people start implementing different flashes, different angles, different level changes. That's just things that I generally didn't see the surveillance footage. Again, that just might be the sample that I studied was wrong. But again, from the footage that I studied, I came to certain conclusions. And again, those conclusions can change over time, and that conclusion could be wrong too, because obviously it depends on the sample that I studied. And I obviously watch every video out there, but by watching hundreds of hours of footage and logging like what happened, we want to isolate what's common out there from what's not common. Like for example, when I was studying empty hand, right? The majority of punches came from the right hand, indeed, was big looping punches, and towards your majority of the time. So yes, I saw footage of people get kicked in the head and they were knocked out. I saw footage of people doing like Shaolin type of motions. And there was a kung fu guy and he did a Shaolin type of motion and knocked his opponent out. Those are outliers, you know. Those are things that are not common. And so for me to have my students in a 2-day class train against those things would be irresponsible. I definitely impress my students and show them 100 techniques against 100 different attacks. Although that would impress them, that wouldn't make them any better. So what we do is we isolate from my studies again, and this is from my study and Patrick's studies, what we saw that was common. And again, maybe our sample size was insufficient, and it might have been incorrect as well too. But continue to study footage of attacks. It reconfirms our conclusion, and people are they attack in very predictable manners if they're not trained. And so when you spar, you generally have two people similar levels going against each other, and that kind of training escalates the technique, right? That's why look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That looks nothing like a street fight, a ground fighting street fight. And I will be the first to acknowledge that. Probably 80% of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that I just practiced this morning, I would never use on the street. I'll be honest with you. It's fun. I love it. It gives me a great workout. Someone throws on a De La Riva guard on me. I do a knee cut pass. They throw in a knee shield. I do a backstab pass. That stuff just does not happen on the street. You know, and so, for me to teach that in a ground fighting survival class for the street level, it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible. Oh, okay. Let's do a berimbolo. You'll roll. You'll invert. You'll take their back. That's irresponsible. So we stay focused on the task at hand. And yes, is it isolated? Is it simple? It is isolated. It is simple. It is the most common type of attacks that we've studied and we've seen that we're trying to focus you on and make our students successful in having a higher percentage of stopping those type of attacks.
Interesting, very interesting. I really like what you said about like for the sparring. You're right. If it's two people sparring in a class, normally it's going to be similar level. So there's going to be an escalation of techniques, like you say, and it's at some point it's not going to be realistic technique to defense for self-defense, to practice for self-defense. It's yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I just did some Muay Thai today after, I do double classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And again, I love doing Muay Thai. We do round kicks to the head and push kicks and all this, and even Superman punches and stuff. Again, 80% of that stuff is for fun. And I love it. I'll do it all day. I love it. But I understand people just on the street are not going to attack me like that. You know? But again, if you're looking at sparring, those are high levels of sparring for grappling. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is about as high level as you can get, as well as Muay Thai for striking. That's as high level as you can get. But I'll tell you, it does not translate to the street. Will you be more effective sparring than not sparring? Yes, of course you will. If you never train street fighting and you spar all the time, you'll have better skills than someone sitting on the couch eating Cheetos.
Mm-hmm. That kind of comes to my next question, actually. Ready for this? In your opinion, who would be the better prepared to defend himself on the street? the practitioner of a combat sport who's sometimes competing at an amateur level, or a pure combative system practitioner who very, very rarely spars? Patrick.
That's an awesome question, and a very typical question of martial artists. You know, when I get together with my martial arts friends, that's what we talk about. And so there's really no way to prove it, you know, unless you happen to get two volunteers who fit that mold and say, hey, let's fight and see what happens. Generally, okay, so this is the way I explain it. So I have Kung Fu students, and they ask me, hey, you should try to do UFC. I think you would kick their ass. And I laughed, and I'm like, these guys, even though they've only learned, let's say, 2 systems, right? Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. They train 8 hours a day, sometimes more, you know, 6 days a week for, let's say, 3 years. You know, they're deadly to anybody, you know, the average Joe on the street who has 0 training, right? They're deadly against an expert, self-defense expert who doesn't spar, who doesn't pressure test, who doesn't do any sort of physical challenge, right? They will have 3 years of MMA training, and they will probably destroy that instructor, right? Because they're just physically conditioned, and they have that mindset of kill, 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 or knockout, 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 or tap out, tap out, tap out. That will trump anybody who is just purely an academic.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. That's just physics. You know, I always say physics wins, right? Now, if that pure combatives instructor has pressure tested his system, and he does it regularly, then I don't know. It may be a toss-up. But if he's a self-defense instructor who never spars, never pressure tests, never does anything physical, against again, even a guy with maybe a year of MMA training could probably knock him out if he wanted to, right? It comes down to that the biomechanics, the physiology, the mindset, all the things that Conrad mentioned before. Those are huge factors in a physical fight that a lot of people don't think about.
Nice.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely. I would put my money. I would definitely put my money on those 2 versus the guy sitting on the couch eating his Cheetos as a keyboard commander.
Definitely.
You know, I would also add that, you know, just train, just train. You know, I mean, who knows who comes out better or worse? You know, just train, have fun, enjoy yourself. You know, look at it from a bigger perspective that you're training, you're learning something new. Who can kick whose ass? That's like a few minutes of your life. Who cares? Who cares? You know, I train so much. I know there's plenty of people that will kick my ass left and right. I don't care. I don't care if you kick my ass. That's a few minutes of your life, and that's a few minutes of my life. Whatever.
But you said it right. Enjoy yourself, because if you train martial arts because you say, okay, this is the one who's gonna better prepare me for the street, but you hate it, you're not gonna acquire the knowledge right, and you're gonna quit at some point.
Yeah.
You love a martial art that is not supposedly not that good for the street, but you love it so much that you always train it. Who's gonna be the best prepared, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions? It's you have to answer like very quick and 1 or 2 words.
Sure. Just let us know who should go first.
Whatever. Whoever speaks first. All right. Ready? One self-defense tool to carry for the rest of your life. You cannot change it, and it's the only one you can have.
Mindset.
Woo!
Mindset. That was me too.
All right. One martial art. Oh, that's going to be difficult for Conrad. One martial art only to practice for the rest of your life.
Oof.
How about this? Martial arts.
Hey.
Hey, I consider it one big family. It's to me one big family. You know, sometimes it's dysfunctional family, but still one big family.
I want to read that. Patrick.
We'll give them a pass. You know?
Yeah, that's like saying which limb would you want to cut off?
Yeah.
They're so awesome for different reasons, and so it's pretty hard to pick one.
All right. I won't push. Any other martial art or system you didn't try that you would like to dive into?
Wow, so many. I don't know how many more. It would take me another lifetime to go through all the arts that I want to do. A lot. I want to do a lot. There's a lot of Chinese systems that I still want to do because they're so cool. You see them in the movies. Wow, I want to get into wrestling, catch wrestling, weapons. More firearms, spear. Well, I've trained in like traditional Chinese weapons, but there are other like HEMA. I would love to do like Dean.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, same thing with Patrick. There's, just looking at the Filipino martial arts, there's so many different systems and styles and different islands. It's just doing a little survey of all that would be awesome.
Just say Calis Illustrusi and Modin's gonna be happy. Come on.
That's all. Just say KI and we'll call it a day. Just say the letters K and I, and we'll just solve it. Okay.
All right.
Okay. One advice for self-defense for the viewers. Most important advice.
I would say don't look at. A lot of people say self-defense, and that's already kind of you're a step behind because you're defending someone who's already attacking you. So a lot of times I'll use the phrase personal protection because it's proactive. Personal protection also means your home security, how you see things, and where you're looking, and what you're telling your relatives, your wife, your kids, your friends who are with you, what they should be doing as well. So personal protection to me is like it's a radar. It's like a multi-layered onion, and it should expand outward, right? And so that's kind of the way I look at it. So when people say self-defense, it's like you're already a step behind because you are working from the fact that someone's already attacking you.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with a couple of things on this one, but what we talked about before: stay alert, stay humble, stay kind. And one more piece of advice is run if you can and destroy if you must. You've got to have a balanced viewpoint on this. Whatever you can do, run if you can. Avoid, recognize, de-escalate, all those steps. Do those steps and then run if you can. But if you can't run, your life is in danger or those of your loved ones, you need to do what you have to stop that threat.
Run if you can, destroy if you must. That's awesome. Should be the name of a new movie or something. We've got a question. We're almost done here. Another question from the public is from Glenn C. It's Dean again who got that question. That's addressed to Conrad, I think. Could he talk about Grove Jiu-Jitsu in San Francisco and if he will be teaching there?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Maybe. Never say never.
There you go. Maybe, never say never. All right. Well, that encompasses the next question. Future plans, guys? Goals in the near future, or?
You want to go first, Patrick?
Yeah, I guess our near goal is our EDC Edge Weapon Seminar, which is on May 14th and 15th in Parkville, Maryland. That's just outside of Baltimore. So if you're on the East Coast, please join us. It covers a lot of the things that we talked about today. I'm kind of biased because it's ours, but I think it's one of the best and fun knife seminars that you can go to. That's a near goal. So yeah, that's the big one that we're focusing on, and we're gonna do a lot more this year. A lot of people are asking for other types of courses involving, improvised weapons. They want more grappling. We had a anti-grappling webinar recently, so they want more of that. So Conrad, what else can you add in?
Oh gosh, our goal for Tiga Tactics, just in a broad sense, is to spread the love of martial arts and make this a safer world through martial arts training. We've raised and donated over $16,000 back to the martial arts community. For me, martial arts saved my life. It changed my life. It's who I am, and my agenda is to just spread martial arts and any martial arts. I'm all for it. If the only thing you have is a dude down the street teaching out of his garage, go train there. Do something. Martial arts, there's no better activity than martial arts. I can't find one. Martial arts encompasses everything from improving your mind, improving your body, improving your health. It's a social avenue. There's morals and ethics to be learned in a good martial arts school. There's confidence. Kids with confidence. There's discipline and respect, things that we teach to kids, as well as adults could follow as well too. But above that, there's the physical fitness, and if you ever need to defend yourself, you have better odds of doing that than any other activity. So that's my agenda: is promote martial arts. Of course, promote Tiga Tactics, because like what Patrick said, we're biased. We think we have the best stuff, which we should think that. But I'm for promoting any type of martial arts. So when you see me online, I'm just promoting them all. I'm non-denominational martial artist. Martial arts is my religion. Every good thing that I've had has come through martial arts. So that's my thing. It's just to help spread martial arts more and give back to the martial arts community where we can.
Amazing. Any plans on spreading the love in Canada soon?
Hopefully.
I would love to go back home. That would be awesome. So Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, my hometown of Edmonton. Absolutely, we'd be totally open to it.
Awesome. Any questions for Dan, Dean?
No, this was great. I'm just glad we were able to squeeze part 2 sooner than later, so it worked out.
Yeah. Thank
you for having us.
A real honor to have you.
I think we're the lucky ones, so thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Me, anytime I can talk about martial arts, I'm there. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us a voice and an avenue to do so. Thank you, everybody who's watching. I totally appreciate it. Continue to spread that martial arts love, everyone.
All right. Well, you guys take care, and you never know. We always bring people back on down the road. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. Have a great night, everyone. It's our honor.
All right. I got you. Take care, Patrick.
All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
You too. And that wraps up 287. So Martin's got to take off. He's got to fly off to the airport. So he's going. Raffle. If you haven't already checked it out, it's all going to Ukrainian refugees. And that's ending May 16th at 6 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. Really good books in there, free lessons. If you're an instructor or that, donating lessons, you could very well get students out of it. So just a thought. But it's on the pinned post in FMA discussion. You just go in there and you'll see it there. All right, folks. Next one is, I believe, this weekend with Tom Pena. And I think it's with Alex Blunterwalk, if I'm not mistaken. I think so. I think it's 6 p.m. Sunday Eastern time. So if you're into Blunterwalk, hear good things about Alex. All right, folks. Thanks for jumping in, and we'll see you next time.